Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bear Beer review. Today we are going to be trying Flying Dog's Wildeman or Wildeman. So Flying Dog, they have, as always with Flying Dog, absolutely funky bottle. Really goes in tune with their style. Kind of like a brew dog of America, or I'm not sure which one was first. The bottle says, "His axe is stained with the blood of 1,000 adversaries. We're falling behind him as he leads us into the darkness. He turns his gaze on us. Tentada via est. The way must be tried." So this is quite an interesting beer because they call it a Farmhouse IPA, and by that they actually mean that it is a beer brewed with Saison yeast, but done a little bit more IPA style, so it's hopped quite heavily. If you never come across Saison style beers, they're a Belgian style of beer that were kind of traditionally used in farms in spring and summertime to refresh the workers who worked on the farms, essentially. The Saison yeast that they use in particular gives a certain spicy and orangey notes is probably the best way to describe it. So this Farmhouse IPA is using Saison yeast and is really heavily hopped as well, hence why it's called an IPA. Saisons themselves are usually quite hoppy as well because they needed to put hops in to make it, because the drinking water back in the day wasn't particularly safe. They needed to put lots of hops in to act as an antibacterial agent, and of course to give tons of flavour as well. So I'm kind of expecting something between a nice balanced Saison, spicy, orangey, citrusy Saison, which is what you expect when you try kind of a normal one in the style, and between a proper American style IPA, so hopped out. So it could be really interesting. So without further ado, let's crack the top on this and get on in. Lots of smoke coming off the top there, and give it a good glug into a glass. There we go. Oh, ton of head coming on that one. It was a bit of a glug I gave it, to be honest. Anyway, that's about three fingers worth of head. Really fine bubbles, kind of cloudy, and I'm not sure if you can see, but it is remarkably pale, especially if I hold it up to the light down there, you might be able to see it. It is lemon-like. It is almost like looking at lemon juice with a tiny little bit of orange in. It's really quite pretty, and there's some fantastic carbonation going on all the way through it. Tons of head, which is probably more due to my pour than anything, and the head's dissipating quite quickly. There's some really big bubbles popping up around there. So now that I've got a ton of head, let's stick the old nose in and give it a try. Oh, fruity as anything. Yeah, you can smell the Saison style yeast in there, just like with the Belgian yeast. Very distinct floral note, something kind of like elderflower is probably how I'd best describe it. And an absolute, dip my nose in again, I do that a lot, apricots. Soft, firm, fleshy fruit. It really does smell quite apricotty, and a little bit of something like, it's not orange, it's more a satsuma. Should we put it that way? It's not as bitter and not as full on sweet, and also at the same time quite bitter like an orange is. It's much sweeter in smell. I would say it's more like a satsuma kind of smell, and apricots, and this kind of floral elderflowery yeast smell, and a bit of spiciness going on as well. And there's something just a little bit of bite at the end. Something maybe coriander, something along the lines of coriander, and well, I can just smell. By the way it smells so light and refreshing. I can tell it's just gonna be an absolute pleasure to drink. So cheers. Oh, yeah, it is an absolute pleasure. It's wonderfully balanced. The initial onrush was a nice malty body. It was a really kind of light biscuity flavour, nothing heavy at all. It was a very nice subtle malty backbone, and then almost kind of builds from there. It just builds in bitterness all the way up to the back end. So I got then a wave of kind of a hoppy bitterness, and the citrusy flavours coming through. So that apricotty, satsuma-y, tangerine-y, orangey flavour coming through, and then an overtake of hops, kind of an extra onrush of bitterness when the flavour's dissipated. So I'll give it another quick swig. Oh, yeah, it is an absolute pleasure. It's wonderfully balanced. The initial onrush was a nice malty body. It was a really kind of light biscuity flavour, nothing heavy at all. It was a very nice subtle malty backbone, and then almost kind of builds from there. It just builds in bitterness all the way up to the back end. So I got then a wave of kind of a hoppy bitterness, and the citrusy flavours coming through. So that apricotty, satsuma-y, tangerine-y, orangey flavour coming through, and then an overtake of hops, kind of an extra onrush of bitterness when the flavour's dissipated. So give it another quick swig. There's something quite distinct there as well. I think I'm picking out with some of the floral notes, probably from the yeast. There's a little bit of elderflower that kind of joins in the mix towards the end, as you get the bitterness that comes through. I mean, to compare it to other IPAs, it's very heavily hopped. You know, that bitterness at the end, and those floral notes that are going through it from the hops, from what I can only describe as being the hoppy flavours. They're really pronounced and really strong, but at the end, with other American style IPAs, they're often quite upfront, or you get that aggressive bitterness right from a second after you take a swig. But with this one, there is a good little bit of delay between you taking that drink. You get the malt, then you get a nice balanced bit of bitterness, almost kind of sourness maybe, and then you get the pronounced bitterness. In terms of the Saison, it's definitely too bitter. It's too bitter for a Saison, because they are far more balanced and they are very refreshing beers. And I think it's a really good mix between the two. It's definitely branches over. This Farmhouse IPA style, so they call it, is a fantastic mix between the really refreshing Saison, balanced Saison style that's so light and airy, and the IPAs. It's the best of both worlds mixed into one. So you get that nice refreshiness, and then you get that wonderful bitterness, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a really big fan of shoving as many IBUs into a beer as possible. I like bitter. I like everything that's a bit extreme though. So it's a fantastic mix between the two. It's really enjoyable. I mean, it's amazing to me that there's such a pronounced malt character in it. It's a nice little biscuity malt that then kind of ebbs away into the hop flavour. And it's just, they must have used quite a lot of I assume something like caramel or maybe a Munich or something like that, or maybe even Pilsner, because it's a very light in colour. That gives it's the fact that flavour can come through means they've put a lot of effort into making it so balanced and really trying to keep it in terms with the Saison style. Yeah, I really recommend going out and trying this. It's so light and refreshing and easy going on the palate. It feels so wonderful on the mouth. It's so light, and there's a nice bubbling that kind of carries on your tongue as you're drinking, and it kind of massages. It's nice big bubbles popping on your tongue. A wonderful mouthfeel. And the mouth's coated, actually. I should probably mention that it feels like it's coated with maybe kind of the hoppy resins, because the flavour is definitely sticking on the tongue, and the palate, because of the bitterness, the palate dries out quite a lot, so the bitterness stays, and it makes me want to take another drink and kind of wet my palate again. And it's a fantastic beer. I'm really enjoying that one. I've tried a couple of other Flying Dog beers before, and I'll definitely do some reviews of them as well. This one's one of the best ones I've tried by them, because some of their other styles, particularly the IPAs, are just hot bombs and not a huge amount else, and I'm burping. That's the carbonation coming through. So yeah, it smells wonderful. It looks absolutely gorgeous. It doesn't really come from looking at the little screen on the camera. It doesn't really come through, but it's a lot lighter than it looks. It really is a very pale yellow colour. Looks great. It smells great. It's an interesting blend between two different styles that I haven't tried before, so it's quite innovative in that respect. It's a fantastic beer. So until next time, cheers guys.